Hello guys, welcome to Ep2 video. So welcome to another Bitcoin weekly candle close. Today is Tuesday, early Tuesday, and I'm here to show you what's going on with Bitcoin this week. So as you guys can see, Bitcoin had a new all-time high. So last week with this close, Bitcoin retested breach our 110,000 for the first time and the middle of our upward channel one more time, but this is the first time that we cross above our 110,000. So basically Bitcoin managed to push as high as $112,000, but we couldn't close anything. The body of the candle could not close above the 110,000, where we would be closing as well above the middle of our upward channel. So this is great. It's great news. We made a new all-time high. Bitcoin made a new all-time high, although could not close above this measure, this measure level, but we managed to tap, basically making a new all-time high. We managed to tap this level and is currently consolidating, and with a new week already trying to retest this level again, but still consolidating. So we can see for this reason that the DXY just confirmed what we were talking about, basically switching from silver to red. You can see the DXY switching from silver to red. Finally, we can see what's going on. Switching from silver to red is an indication that we are preparing to start making new highs, or basically in this case preparing to break the middle of this upward channel. And as you can see, the 110,000 need to be broken, and Bitcoin need to close a weekly candle above this level to confirm the breakout. But we can see that the DXY is already red, and as I was mentioning, that this looked like a rising wedge. You can see it's already got rejected at this level and plunged down. We have this red candle with about 1.77%. It's a big candle. It's like a rejection candle. You can see a confirmation and return below the DXY upward channel. So we mentioned that we would be able, this would be an indication that the DXY would be going much lower, or at least returning below the outside the upward channel. And this is what happened this week. This is great. This is a confirmation that the red phase is confirmed, and what we would expect, what we can expect for the DXY is to remain below this level. And as you guys can see, the top, this red phase tells us that we are about to accelerate a little bit more. At the same time, it tells us that the DXY is very close to the bottom, when we compare to the previous cycles, we can see that it's very close to the bottom, and what's going to happen is that we're going to have the DXY reversing, and by the time the DXY touch this downward trend line, you can see here 1 and 2, and we have a simulation, we have this downward trend line here, and by the time the DXY retests this downward trend line, is an indication that we might be very close to the top of this bull market. So being very close to this level means that this move, the acceleration mode will be will take weeks, and most likely might not most likely will not uh, take too long to actually reach the top. You can see that this area, this downward trend line, is telling us that this move could be very fast due to the inclination of this downward trend line, but we're going to have to access this and see what will happen. What will happen? So we already have this prediction. We're going to have to see how the DXY is going to behave below this downward trend line. But I reckon that testing this downward trend line could be an indication of the top, and we're going to have to see where Bitcoin is going to be standing by the time we retest this downward trend line. So we know, based on past data points, that the DXY moved, switched from silver to red, continued to go, closing candles below this area, below the downward trend, the upward channel, and we can see got red, extended for the extended period, and by the time the DXY retested this level, we can see it was exactly retesting this downward trend line, was exactly at the top, as you can see, although this bull market had a double top, but this doesn't mean much. You can see it was around our 59,000 level, at this level. You can see it was around this level. And on the 2017 bull market, switch from silver to red, we go to the acceleration phase, reach the top of the upward channel, and we can see that the DXY retested this level, 2 times. In this case, it retested 2 times, and the second time was exactly at the top. So we knew touching this downward trend line and touching the top of this upward channel was the top. So what we're expecting here is basically the same thing for Bitcoin, for the DXY to retest this line somehow, having an extended period of red, we're expecting this red to be extended. And by the time we retest it upward trend line, we're going to have to assess whether Bitcoin will be actually retesting any of these levels, being $174,000, $253, and perhaps $382,000, and see if the DXY is already retesting this downward trend line. So this would be an indication of the top, but of course we need to keep an eye on both charts and see the relationship between them, like what happened in previous cycles. The DXY and Bitcoin ratio, we can see, you can see that the ratio avoided crossing the 50-week moving average as predicted. it's trying to push down. You can see we have a new all-time high. The ratio is already showing clearly that we are at the new all-time high, and the other side is clearly below this downward trend line, meaning that it returning to the bullish territory and is very close to break this line, which is the 30 level. So every time the RSI is below the 30 level, it will turn green, and this will mark the acceleration phase, like what happened during this bull market. We can see that the RSI had a fake out, return below the 50 level, which is red line, return below the downward trend line, and by the time it crossed the 30 level, this is where Bitcoin was able to make a new all-time high and push toward the uh, toward the 59,000, $69,000 in this case, and remain at this level, go inside this downward chan channel, and we can see what happened. It stayed green for a while. By the time you return below and broke this trend line to the downside, after touching this yellow downward trend line, was the top of the bull market. The same thing happened here. You can see made a new all-time high, avoided other fake out, returned below this downward trend line, broke the 30 level, stay green, and this is where the acceleration phase happened. Go inside this channel, and by the time you left this downward trend line and the 30 level, was the top of the bull market. So we are very close, really very close to a move to the upside. I believe it's to the upside, because we just tapped into red on the DXY. So we know that Bitcoin is very close to acceleration mode. By the time it breaks by the time Bitcoin breaks this level to the upside, breaking the 110,000 in the middle of this upward channel, is when the acceleration phase is going to happen. So if you have Bitcoin above closing candle above 110,000, you're going to have this RSI below the 30 level turning green and staying green within this interval. You guys can notice, I noticed that this interval is very small compared to this interval during this phase, and compared to this interval during this phase. And you can see those phases were actually much extended. The acceleration took a long time. You can see here 2017 as well, it lasted for a long time. You can see that this acceleration phase is becoming smaller. And what I noticed is that based on this downward trend line, and where the RSI, the space that the RSI has to stay green is much smaller compared to the rest. So we can imagine the RSI breaking this level, the 30 level to the downside, staying green for a little bit, for this while, and then breaking this downward trend line to the upside again would most likely be the top of this bull market. So we're gonna have acceleration, but it's gonna last uh, probably less than about 6 months, or less than 6 months, to be honest. It's gonna be less than 6 months, but you can see that it's giving us this date, that is the September, in this case September 2025, I believe. So based on this downward trend line, I can predict that the top is likely to last to be reached in a few months. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in a few months, and most likely until September 2025. You can see based on this data, we're going to have to access and see what's going to happen. But this is what the data is telling me. And this is going to be really fast. And it's very close. It's closer than most people believe it is at the moment. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this and see what's going to happen. Fear and greed index in the sentiment side, we are consolidating on the 74, and we can see why the sentiment managed to tap the extreme greed at 78. Consolidating, we are consolidating below the 74, managed to tap into 78 extreme greed. This is most likely when Bitcoin into tapped into above 110,000, reached $112,000. This is what made the sentiment move at a push to extreme greed at 78. But with the correction and the consolidation below or the 110,000 below the mid of upward channel, we can see that the sentiment cooled down a little bit. We managed to the sentiment tested below, they tested the 66, and now it's a 74, which I think is great because we need to respect 74 because it's a major resistance level. But tapping to 78 is a good indication. Is that it means that the sentiment is just waiting for the right time to show up, and this would be above closing candles above the 110,000 once and for all. This would allow the sentiment to stay above the 74, or it means on extreme greed for a while and keep push this market to the upside. That's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. This week we're gonna have to see if we're gonna be able to finally break this level to the upside, stay there until we close this weekly candle. So far we are not doing that, but it's good to see that we are consolidating just below the 110,000 in the middle of this upward channel. But the good thing is that the DXY is not getting any stronger. It's giving a confirmation that it wants to remain red, and it's is showing us that we most likely the DXY will stay here for a while. This red period is gonna extend a little bit more, and we're gonna have to keep an eye on this because this is gonna determine whether Bitcoin is gonna be able to break to the upside and make new highs. And of course, this is what everyone wants. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next Monday with further update on this market. Thank you very much. Bye.